I have two sets of clips to play for you from two different interviews that Marjorie Taylor Greene was a part of at the Republican National Convention. Obviously, as this is going on, you just have all the big figures there, and so a bunch of them are getting interviewed in between events, and it's yielding some pretty bonkers moments. Marjorie Taylor Greene has recently gotten in the routine of just ending interviews whenever she doesn't like the line of questioning, and that's what you're going to see here. Very upset. Very, very upset. And then, while this is the most confrontational of the clips I have for you, in a different, more friendly interview, I somehow find the interview to be worse because the one interviewing Marjorie Taylor Greene is named Russell Brand, and he sort of portrays himself as this spiritual guru. I'm so enlightened. Hello, my awakening wonders, is how he talks to his followers. It's like a sort of cult rhetoric. Very weird. But he is barefoot in their interview, and it just really weirds me out. So we'll get to that as well. But first, here is a very upset, very unhinged Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it gets worse as it goes along.
So Vance, he said that the UK could be the first Islamist country with nuclear weapons under the new Labour government. Doesn't that paint a sour picture for relations with the UK?
Well, let's talk about the words of the Democrats and Joe Biden that have also labeled President Trump as a fascist, labeled all of us as Nazis and Hitler, completely lied, demonizing him so much so that a young man, a 20-year-old, which is hard to imagine, actually climbed onto a roof and tried to murder President Trump.
You said that the Democrats wanted the shooting of Trump to happen.
Let's talk about people like you.
Where's your evidence of that?
Let's talk about people like you.
But where's your
that
evidence of those
demonize
claims?
People like me, President Trump. You know, I have some of the most highest amount of death threats because of people like you. Because you choose to only...
And before going further, I already addressed the talking points that because people have pointed to the authoritarian impulses of Trump, somehow they're to blame for what took place. Not accurate or reasonable to assert that, and actually pretty dangerous to pretend as if Democrats should be blamed for what took place, especially considering it was a registered Republican, reportedly, according to classmates, lifelong conservative, Trump signs in the yard, gun enthusiast, Second Amendment sort of pro that type of guy, and I just think it's really dishonest and dangerous to push that. But also, if that's your standard, Trump calls Biden a fascist and a Marxist and a communist, so we can just hold off on those dishonest talking points. I wish. And then to immediately go after the media is a little strange, because what she means by the media does bad things to her, usually they just report on the things she says, and then people go, that's crazy. Of course, that does not justify, and no one should ever be sending death threats to anybody, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. But again, strange to just attack some reporter asking you questions.
I have some of the most highest amount of death threats because of people like you. Because you choose to only take certain words from people, and then that's what you want to report. Shame on you. Shame on you.
But
because
where's your evidence?
No. You're the problem. And where's this woman from?
The Times.
You're
London.
from the Times? Okay, you're ridiculous. And you're the problem in our country. You lie about people like me. This is the first time you've ever talked to me. I want you to know, I'm a regular person like you. I'm also a mom. I have 3 kids. And we have to put up with the most unreal amount of bullshit because of little liars like you that take your job and turn it into political activism. Your job is the press. You should report the news, not lie. Not lie about it. You don't get to ask any more questions. I'm done with you because you're the cause. You're
One
the
more
cause
thing. You
of
call
our
the
country.
Democrats a
No.
party
You're
of
the cause of
pedophiles.
our
Do you have any
country being
response to
divided.
that?
You're the cause of our country being divided. You're the cause of President Trump almost being assassinated. You're the cause of everything wrong
But where's
in
your
America.
evidence for those claims?
No. You're done. You're done. Yeah, go back.
Thank
Go back.
you.
And then she storms off. So again, we have another completely different, if you've already seen this interview, to get to in this segment. But first, to respond to that, it's wild whenever you're Marjorie Taylor Greene to blame anyone else, really, or pretend like anyone else is more to blame for dividing the country, when one of the things she's most known for is saying that Democrats are pedos. Just the Democratic Party at large is the party of pedos. That's a pretty divisive thing to say whenever, obviously, it's baseless. And she espouses some of the most vitriolic, hateful, and divisive language of anyone in our political process. And so some hypocrisy there too. And again, you just got your whole chance to do the rant that you wanted to say. She, I guess, doesn't have the introspection or introspective ability to understand that what we just observed, most people think is unhinged, right? She's thinking, no, it must be the press that makes me seem so crazy, and that's why people portray me as that, which again, does not justify any violent threats of any kind. Just the broader perception of her is not because she's taken out of context. We watch super long contextualized clips of her, and it doesn't help her perception at all. I can tell you that. I think it's because you freak out when literally the reporter asks a question about U.S. relations with the United Kingdom. How does J.D. Vance's rhetoric on the UK impact a potential Trump administration's interactions with the UK? And Marjorie Taylor Greene goes, "You're to blame. You suck." Huh? If you are not already subscribed to this channel, what are you doing? You're breaking my heart. But please do click that subscribe button. It's easy, it's free, and I appreciate it greatly. Back to the video. Now, we get to a more chill environment, but somehow still more uncomfortable, where Russell Brand, again, someone we've talked about before, who tries to portray himself as above the fray and above partisanship, but he happens to just push, in a very bizarre way, MAGA nonsense 24/7. And here, even though he's in a public convention on camera, he once again has decided not to wear shoes.
Is required, and how likely is it that when it comes to criminal proceedings and genuine consequences for people like Fauci that will be pursued, and how far are you willing to pursue it? Because Ron's actually prepared to pursue it quite aggressively, it seems.
Well, we've worked together, the senator and I, because, well, you know, I'm one of those unvaxxed people. I just didn't buy into the whole lie that I felt sold to us from the medical industrial complex. But really, to break that system, we have to look deeper into why so many members of Congress and elected officials are basically beholden to, you know, the different big pharma companies. And that's because they're funded by them. And it's that shouldn't hold elected officials in place.
Isn't it so interesting that even though they'll use rhetoric like that while they're pushing conspiracy theories, they'll lie about the vaccines? Well, all the things that you said were going to happen because the vaccines didn't happen, and we now have data that shows it saved millions of lives. So you were wrong. That's proven to be the case. I remember some of these conspiracy theorists saying that before you know it, half of the people you know in your life are going to be dead from the vaccine. Obviously, that didn't happen. It's proven to be safe and effective. But she then transitions that into a talking point that doesn't seem as absurd, because it's not absurd to say we should be critical of and mindful about the impact that powerful special interests have on our politicians and their policy making. One of those special interest groups being big pharma, as we refer to it, pharmaceutical companies lobbying on behalf of their interests. And we should be mindful of that. We should push back against that power structure to make sure that we're seeing governance in the interest of all Americans and not just powerful elites. But first of all, that being a stance you're rhetorically espousing doesn't justify your fact-free conspiracy theories about the safe and effective vaccines. And also, if we're talking about the record of the two parties, while both parties struggle to properly rein in big pharma, right now we're seeing a Biden administration aligned with many Democrats in Congress who has finally taken steps in the right direction on that front, beating big pharma when it comes to the negotiating of pharmaceutical drug prices for Medicare recipients, capping the cost of insulin at $35 out of pocket per month, and some other actions as well. If you're going to side with a party because they're able to push back against the power of big pharma, the Democratic Party is your best shot, even with its flaws. Then you have more.
Oh, you've never been one?
Never
Same
even,
as me?
yeah, never even
You're
been
a
one.
congresswoman.
So
What's going on?
Well, our last one was in 2020.
Because of COVID.
Yeah, the whole world shut down. And then...
Which was an overreaction, it
big
turns
time.
out. They overreacted.
Absolutely. It was a massive overreaction.
Just leave us alone.
Yeah, let us take ivermectin or whatever we want to do. Natural immunity is the best. And they shut down businesses and schools, and it was ridiculous.
I think you can have critiques of certain hypocritical policies from some leaders. You can totally have criticisms of how that unprecedented moment was handled. I have plenty of criticisms of how Trump handled it, and some others as well, including Democratic leaders. But it's so strange how they act like there wasn't this devastation that took place. My gosh, we locked down, found out that was for nothing because it wasn't dangerous. Over 1 million people died in the United States. Clearly, there was justification to be as concerned as we were. And certainly, if you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you, shoeless Russell Brand for some reason in an interview, if you didn't push so much misinformation, maybe a lot more of your supporters would still be alive. Because twice, especially after the vaccine was introduced, twice as many Republicans were dying than Democrats. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's random? That once the vaccine was introduced and you had this politicized decision whether you take it or not, we saw a spike in the gap between Democrats dying and Republicans dying at twice the rate. That's because they bought into, unfortunately, this is heartbreaking. Many of them bought into the very nonsense we hear on podcasts like this. Any guilt, any shame do you feel? Russell Brand, Marjorie Taylor Greene, natural immunity is the best immunity. Yeah, unless you die.
I mean, it is disgusting. I would love to explain to you the...
Okay, this is fun. Now we'll get more lighthearted. Marjorie acts like... Why does he have shoes on? I don't understand. Okay, Marjorie acts like... What are we sitting, having a picnic on 4th of July, Russell? You're at the Republican National Convention. I'm done with that. I'm sorry. Here, Marjorie explains just the interworkings of our political system as if it's the first time anyone's ever heard this, and she thinks she's so insightful. Take a look.
Insidious claws are throughout the political world.
There are claws in the political world like you would not believe, Russell. I mean, it is disgusting. I would love to explain to you the hierarchy and how it works on the... When I was talking about politics as a business, it is fascinating, absolutely
Explain
fascinating.
it, would you?
Because you have the political world that exists of political consultants, and they're power players because they pick a candidate, and if they can raise enough money and get their candidate across the line, well, then they're a power player in their own right. They set someone up like a mini kingdom, right? And then they play across that levels. But those same political consultants also have their connections in the media. And so certain consultants will prop up only their candidates. That's why you see certain people on Fox News and you don't see certain people on Fox News. And then you have the media, you have the left-wing media, the right-wing media, and how they're making their play as political activists in that realm. And they control the information to the people. And so they control the stories, and they control the people who are their guests. They control the entire narrative. And then you have the actual government positions. And the government positions, and get this, is where it meets and sort of melds in with the politics.
Get this. Are you saying politicians meld with politics? Please continue.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
This is where you have the political consultants, and then you have the lobbyist world. The lobbyist world, they're basically like salespeople that represent their industries. If it's big pharma, military industrial complex, whatever it may be, all the way down to necessary lobbyists, like they're just representing, car dealerships that are trying to exist and get, be put...
I feel a bit sorry for them ones.
Oh,
We're just trying to make an honest dollar for car dealerships, ma'am. Could you hear us?
Shut the fuck up! We're from Pfizer! We'll fucking destroy you! They're getting no chance in the lobbying game, are they?
No, they aren't. As a matter of fact, they're marginalized.
They're marginalised lobbyists. Who thinks about the marginalised lobbyist? I've never even conceptualised that before, because I thought lobbyist... evil realm of Satan, but there are like sweet little lobbyists trying their hardest.
Yeah, they're there saying the Green New Deal is killing our people's ability to sell cars.
It definitely is, isn't it? What, you think that the solar panels is no good?
It's amazing that the Green New Deal is killing business when the Green New Deal hasn't ever even gotten through committee. It's much less been signed into law. Wow. I'm so uncomfortable in so many ways. Okay, get this. Ready? I'm going to explain something to you. I should have my pen for this. So, you have people in the media, right? And they get this. They're able to choose which stories they cover, okay? But wait until you get to this next part. And they can invite on guests. So they choose which guests go on. So, that's suspicious. And then you have something called lobbyists. And lobbyists, since you probably don't know what that means, lobbyists is like, it's like you're trying to lobby on behalf, but not like a hotel lobby. Like, you're being like a salesman, but you're not trying to sell anything. You're just trying to, okay. It's, yes, we know, Marjorie. Thank you for explaining how that works. And then you have your oppressed lobbyists, and they're in a tough spot. Wow. They can pretend like they're so anti-elite, and then they support the guy, Trump, who, when he was in office, barely got major legislation signed into law. But when he did, it looked something like a tax cut bill that wildly, disproportionately benefited the top of the economic ladder, shoving wealth in the direction of the wealthy while exacerbating the increasing of the debt. Trump adding to the debt at twice the rate as President Joe Biden. But is the adding to the debt for justified causes? Well, the COVID relief stuff, sure. I think that's fair. But even when you remove COVID, he still has a much worse record on the debt. And that is not in the interest of people who really needed it. So maybe you can make you can make a justification for why that deficit spending was all right. But instead, it's doing so all because you wanted your rich friends to get even richer. And listen, you're rich? Great. Have a ball of a time. But our priority shouldn't be trying to get you even more wealth needlessly when you're clearly fine with the current tax rate where it's at. Maybe we could tick that up just a little bit. So the rhetoric, talk is cheap, as they say. You got to see the record. And that's why with all Biden's recent struggles, I do think people should still make sure we're having a balanced conversation about him, include his communication struggles, include the impact of his age on all those things, and also his record being one of someone who actually did rein in the powers at be. He was willing to push back against powerful interests like Big Pharma. So there it is, wacky stuff. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments. I still have my pen. It always does make me feel a little bit more thoughtful, as I bring in and out the little pin part of it, whatever you call that. If you want to get extra content daily, you can do so by clicking the join button below.